Everybody, we're back. And so our next speaker is Tobias Dickmeis. He is the co-founder of and the chief product officer of Tandem, which is a 13 million member language exchange community. I'm sure most of you know who they are. So Tobias will discuss language learning trends around the world today based on data and studies from the Tandem community. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Tobias.
Yes, hello, I'm Tobias, and thanks a lot for having me, and thanks a lot to Chatterbug for putting this amazing event together again. I'm the co-founder of Tandem. Tandem is a language exchange community. It's a place where you can find people from all around the world to practice and learn languages together. And for those of you who are not familiar with how it exactly works, so it's an app you can download from the App Store and from the Play Store. You can also go to our website, tandem.net, and create an account. And when you do that, we are going to ask you for the languages you're speaking and the ones that you want to learn. And then we present you with a list of people who speak the languages you learn and learn the languages you speak. And you can connect with them and then basically learn together in a messenger, which is not too different from WhatsApp or WeChat or Telegram, but has some special language learning features like translating messages, correcting each other's messages, transliterating, and so on. And the community has been growing over the last years and counts 13 million members now. You can learn 300 languages in the community, including 20 sign languages. And this map here shows our top countries, the countries where most of our members come from. It's a bit of fun with flags. So it's the US, Mexico, Brazil, France, Italy, Germany, Turkey, Russia, China, and Japan. And what I want to do in this presentation is look at the trends that we are seeing in these countries in terms of languages that are learned, how they are learned, when they are learned, why they are learned, and look a bit at the facts and the differences around the world. And we start with popular languages. So what are the languages that are most learned in our community overall? To no surprise, the top spot goes to English. And then in second spot, very close, German and Spanish. But English is learned way more than any other language on the platform. Then it's French, Japanese, Korean, Italian, Russian, Chinese, and Portuguese, which is, I guess, quite predictable, this list. Maybe it gets a little less predictable at the next places. So it's Turkish, Arabic, Dutch, Polish, Cantonese, Swedish, Thai, Norwegian. And then in 19th place is also the first sign language, American Sign Language, and number 20 is Hebrew. And here you also find languages like maybe Swedish and Norwegian that don't have so many native speakers, but are actually quite popular amongst learners. Now we look at the most popular target language by country. And you can see here it's across the board English, with one exception. In Germany, actually German is the most learned language. And we attributed this to the fact that we have learners in also other countries that are actually learning the language to speak it in their everyday life. It's probably also the reason why English is the #1 language in the US. It's actually people who live there or members who live there and need the language to basically live their life in the country. And this is the reason they are learning it. Second most popular language, the picture becomes a bit more diverse. In the US, it's Spanish. In Mexico, it's French. In Brazil, it's Spanish. In German, it's then English. It wasn't on #1, but it's in the second spot. In France, it's then people who live in France and learn France. Same in Italy, it's live in Italy and learn Italian. In Japan as well, so it's people who live in Japan and learn Japanese. And then in Turkey and Russia, it's German. And in China, it's also Japanese. That's the second most popular language. And we also look at the bronze medal, the third place. Here in the US, it's French. In Mexico, German. In Brazil, French as well, same like in Russia. In the European countries, it's Spanish. In Germany, in Italy, and in France. In Turkey, it's Turkish then, so the local language. And in the Asian countries, it's Korean. That's the third most popular language. Then one level deeper, we looked at what levels do people speak English on. So when you, on Tandem, you can basically self-assess your language level. You can say if you're beginner, intermediate, advanced, fluent, or native speaker. And this map here shows the biggest group in each country. So in the US, to no surprise, native English speakers are the biggest group. Then in German, it's actually fluent speaker. There are more people who speak fluently English than any other level. In France, Italy, and Turkey, it's the intermediate level. And in the other countries, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, China, and it's the beginner group. That's the biggest group in our community. Then talking about beginners, we got to corrections. So the way that you learn on Tandem is that you exchange messages, audio messages with others, and they also have the ability to correct your text messages, and then hopefully you learn from these mistakes and you do it the right way the next time. And here we looked at which countries actually use this correction functionality the most. So this is basically the world ranking of countries where people correct others the most. I actually presented this last year, I believe. And back then, the world champions in correcting others were Germans. But throughout the year, there have been some changes. And now France took the first spot, took the throne. And France is now the country where people correct others the most in our community, but very closely followed by Germany, and then Italy, US, Mexico, Brazil, Turkey. And at the end of the list, it's Russia, Japan, and China. And the differences are actually pretty huge. So our members in France correct others 10 times more often than those in China. And yeah, we very much believe there are mostly cultural reasons that are responsible for that. I can mostly talk from the German perspective. In Germany, it's actually not necessarily considered unpolite to correct others when they're making mistakes. It's more like seen as helping them. While maybe in other cultures, it's a bit different, and correcting others is considered a bit more unpolite. But I'd also be really interested in hearing everyone's opinion on this. I guess we come together here for this conference from all across the world, and would be very interested in other explanations maybe for this list. Then we get to learning goals. So this is the question: why are people learning languages in our community, in the Tandem community? And this data is based on a survey that we did with 15,000 members. And those are the top 8 learning goals that came out of the question when we asked people why they're learning a language for. So the top reason to learn a language, or the top goal, was learning a language to live in a foreign country, either already living there or wanting to move there. The second was meet people from other countries, followed by improve language skills for work. The fourth one is a bit more vague: practice to not lose your skills. It's a bit of more vaguer language learning goal. Number 5 is very concrete again: go on vacation and speak the language there. Number 6 is passing an exam or get better grades. It's probably members who are students, go to language school, for example. Number 7 was improving an accent, and then number 8 was talking to a partner and their family. And it's also interesting to see how this looks around the world. So in most countries, the number 1 reason is to live in a foreign country, either already living there, which is probably the case in countries like the US or France or Germany, or wanting to live in another country, which is maybe more the case in Mexico, Brazil, and Russia. And then in Turkey, China, and in Japan, the top reason is to meet people from other countries. Then how are people learning? So in the same survey, we asked for learning resources. And these are the top 12 resources that were listed. So the most popular way to learn languages, or the most popular resource, to be more precise, is watching movies in the target language, followed by listening to music, then language learning videos on YouTube, studying with textbooks and or audio courses. In 5th positions are apps like Duolingo or Babbel, for example. We, of course, didn't ask for Tandem because everyone who took part in the survey is part of the Tandem community. In 6th place, reading books in the target language, followed by language learning blogs, then classes at school or university, then classes at a language school. Number 10 is having a local language exchange partner, followed by private tutor and local language learning meetups. That 10 and 12 are not very popular in times of a pandemic is probably quite obvious. But that might change again when it's easier again to also go to local meetups or meet with a local language exchange partner. And here also, again, looking does this look in different countries. So there are a couple of countries where movies are the top language learning resource: Germany, France, Italy, Turkey, and China. In Mexico, Brazil, and Russia, it's actually music. In the US, it's learning with apps. And in Japan, the top spot is learning with YouTube videos. Another interesting question is what form of communication do people prefer in our community when they learn? So on Tandem, you can have video calls, you can have audio calls, you can message, send images, audio messages. And here we see how popular video and audio calls are. In general, over the last years, video and audio calls became even more popular in our community than they were before. An even bigger percentage of our members use audio and video calls on a regular basis. And here we see on this map represented by the size of the flags in which countries is especially popular. And Germany is number 1, followed by the US, then Italy, Turkey, and France, then Russia, Mexico, Japan. And in Brazil and China, it's less popular, but there could also be more technical reasons for it. In Brazil, we know, for example, that most of our users use Tandem with their mobile data rather than with Wi-Fi, like in other countries, which of course, Wi-Fi is a bit easier to do audio and video calls. And in China, there's also the so-called Chinese firewall that makes calls with people from other countries not the best experience, which could be partly an explanation, but there might also be cultural reasons here at play. Then when do people learn? So are there certain seasons, times of the year when language learning is more popular than in others? And we started Tandem in 2015. And basically, throughout the years, we saw this curve. January, February were always pretty strong months. It's winter in the Northern Hemisphere. Maybe New Year's resolutions also play into this. Then we always see a dip in spring where people start using Tandem a bit less. Then it increases again over the summer. Maybe it's vacation time. Maybe it's school holidays when people have more times at their hand to learn languages. Then we always see a quite distinctive dip in the fall when the holiday season is over and it's time to go back to school again. And then over the winter months, November, December, we see an increase again. But then, of course, everything was different last year in 2020. The white curve that you see here shows how the usage of Tandem developed in 2020. And it's pretty much in line with the development of the pandemic, the times that countries went into lockdown. If we would look at this and break it down by country, we can basically see whenever countries went into lockdown, we saw the usage increasing. Our explanation for this is that maybe in these times people have more time at their hands and think language learning is something meaningful I could do. But maybe also a bit of social isolation plays into this, and then a global community like Tandem, where you can connect with people all across the world, is also something that people felt drawn to in this lockdown times. And then at the end of this presentation, I want to look at a couple of language groups that are maybe or maybe not to particular interest to some of you. The first one is sign languages. So sign languages can be learned on Tandem, of course, also primarily in video chats. And we offer 20 of them. And these are actually the most popular ones amongst learners. Number 1, we already saw, number 19 overall. And then also number 1 in this list is American Sign Language, followed by International Sign Language. And then it's British, French, Brazilian, Spanish, German, Japanese, Korean, Russian, Mexican, Chinese, Australian, Italian, Indo-Pakistani, Turkish, Austrian, Malaysian, Dutch, and Polish. I can only encourage you to try Tandem to learn sign languages, and also please give us feedback how this is going for you. The next one is constructed languages. So these type of languages that have not naturally developed, but rather have been devised consciously. The most known one amongst them is probably Esperanto, and this is also, to no surprise, the most spoken and learned languages. So this here shows speakers and learners in our community. Then there's actually a very tough battle between Valerian and Dothraki for the second place. Valerian is ahead by an inch. Number 5 is Toki-Pona, then followed by Klingon, and then by Mandalorian, Interslavic, Interlingua, Kenya, Sindarin, and Ido. Yeah, this is the list currently on Tandem. If you're interested in learning any of these languages, for each of them you find sometimes a smaller, but for Esperanto actually a quite big community on Tandem to practice. Then looking a bit closer at Esperanto, where is Esperanto especially popular in our community? So where do we have the highest percentage of Esperanto learners? First, it's interesting, well, our community in general is more like 50-50 between males and females. For Esperanto, we have more male learners. And then the number one country where Esperanto learners and speakers are mostly represented is the US, followed by Brazil, by France and Italy, Russia, China, Mexico, Germany, and then Turkey and Japan. Yeah, I would also be very interested if there's someone listening from the Esperanto community, if this mirrors the expectations, the experiences in the Esperanto community as a whole. And then last but not least, emoji. So a couple of years ago, we decided more as kind of a joke to offer emoji as a language you can learn, speak, or be native in even on Tandem. And it's actually quite popular. A lot of our members picked this. And I wanted to show a map of the emoji proficiency around the world. So these are the countries where we have the highest percentage of users who claim they're either native or they mostly speak emoji. In last position is my home country, Germany. Only 1.6% of Germans know emoji. Then followed by Italy, by Mexico, by Russia. No, first Russia, then Mexico. Then by France, Brazil, France, Turkey, the US, and then most proficient in emojis are our members in Asia, in Japan, and in China. And yeah, maybe it's a bit of a joke, but also emoji is an iconic language and can be useful in language learning. But yeah, this is our world map of emoji proficiency. And that's already the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, one last thing is we are hiring at Tandem. So if you're interested in helping us building this language exchange community, please check out our website, tandem.net, the careers section. And yeah, if you find a job that interests you, please apply.
Hey, thank you so much for that talk. So I don't actually see any questions coming in, but let's give it a moment and see if anyone has a question. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any questions. So I guess if anyone has questions for Tobias, you can write them in the chat and then he can answer them afterwards if he's going to stick around for a little bit. So I guess we're back on schedule then. So that's great.
Yeah, also Tobias@tandem.net is my email address. You can also find me on LinkedIn if there are any questions, and I will also follow the chat here.
Okay. So somebody did ask how many users are on Tandem. 13 million, correct?
13 million. This is the size of our community, yes.
Yeah, very, very
large.
A
bit more than 13 million, between 13 and 15 million.
And how many messages do people usually send?
So our average user or average member of the community sends about 50 messages a day.
Oh, wow.
If this answers exactly the question, but this is what we're seeing right now.
Okay. That's a lot. And let's see, I think another question just came in. So what are the biggest imbalanced language learning teaching pairs on Tandem?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the most popular language is English. So, and then there are some countries where basically the majority of our members want to learn English. China is, for example, an example. So in China, English is by far the most learned language, but there are not so many English native speakers around the world who want to learn Chinese. We're trying to mitigate this with things that we are doing, but in some languages, it's just harder to find an exchange partner than in others if you're at the disadvantaged side of these language imbalances.
Totally, makes sense. Let's see. Is there any way we can make Tandem better for younger learners and their online safety?
I mean, what we're doing Tandem, you can use when you're 14 years and older, but we have a community that's under 18 and a community that's over 18. So if you're between 14 and 17, you're only going to meet others who are 14 to 17 in the community.
Okay. Last question. Do you have a special link and price for a lifetime subscription to Tandem Pro?
Not yet, but I'm going to pass this on to our team. And maybe we're going to introduce it in the future.
Great. So yeah, if anyone has more questions for Tobias, you can just put them in the chat. And like I said, he'll get back to you if he's around. Thank you so much for joining us again this year. We really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you again, and everybody enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks.